I don't have a husband. Can I have a date with why are you a first-person romantic narrative? My name is Thomas, and I'm a single father of two. That's usually the first thing people notice about me, because it's the most visible thing. The kids, the exhaustion, the constant juggling act of trying to be both parent and provider. I work in property management. Nothing glamorous, nothing that makes people's eyes light up at parties. I make enough to keep us afloat, to keep the apartment clean, to make sure my kids eat vegetables sometimes and get to school on time. Most days, that feels like winning. I don't date. It's not a conscious choice, exactly. It's just what happens when you're too tired at the end of the day to imagine adding another person to your life. When you look at your reflection and see a guy wearing someone else's vomit on his shoulder and think, yeah, no one's going to want this. My ex-wife, Rachel, left when our youngest was 3. She said she loved us, but she loved herself more. She said she needed to find herself. Last I heard, she was doing Pilates in Miami and very happy with someone named Derek. The kids barely remember her. So it's just me. Me and Emma, who's 7 and wants to be a marine biologist. And Lucas, who's 5 and wants to be Spider-Man, though is negotiable on that. They're the best parts of my life. They are also why I don't have time or energy or the right to expect anything for myself. Until the elevator broke at work. I work in a building on the east side of the city, a 20-story commercial space that mostly houses accounting firms and marketing agencies. My job is to make sure the building stays functional. Repairs, maintenance, vendor management, tenant coordination. It's not exciting, but it's stable, and stability is everything when you're raising 2 kids alone. The elevator that broke on that Tuesday morning was the one I took every day. It got stuck between the 4th and 5th floors at 8:47 a.m., with 4 people inside. One of them was a new tenant who'd moved into the corner office on the 19th floor. Victoria Ashford, CEO of some tech startup that I didn't really understand but knew was doing well because the rent was premium and she'd signed a 3-year lease without negotiating. I got the call from the building security about the stuck elevator. I was on the 8th floor, fixing a leak in one of the bathroom pipes. I left immediately and headed down to the ground floor to access the emergency call button. This is Thomas Martinez, building maintenance. I said into the intercom. I can confirm the elevator is stuck. Can you all stay calm? I'm going to get you out. A woman's voice came through. Calm, clear, authoritative. How long is this going to take? Depends on what's wrong, I said honestly. Anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes if it's electrical, longer if it's mechanical. I'm going to try the reset first. I went through the manual, went through the protocols, and after 8 minutes of checking circuits and hydraulic systems, I found the issue. A safety sensor had been triggered incorrectly. I reset it, and the elevator descended smoothly to the ground floor. The doors opened, and Victoria Ashford stepped out. I knew it was her because I'd seen her once or twice in the lobby. Tall, maybe mid-40s, put together in that effortless way that suggests people spend a lot of time making sure she looks effortless. Designer suit, expensive watch. The kind of woman who probably had a driver and a secretary and a whole team of people dedicated to making her life run smoothly. She was alone in the elevator. The other 3 people, office workers, exited and hurried away without a second look. Victoria, however, walked directly toward me. Thank you, she said, and extended her hand. Victoria Ashford. I'm in 1901. I took her hand and shook it. My hand was still slightly damp from the elevator mechanics. Thomas Martinez. Building maintenance. Sorry about the scare. It wasn't scary, she said. Just unexpected. You were very professional about it. That's a job, I said. She nodded slowly, like she was studying me. Do you always work alone? She asked. Usually. Depends on the issue. And are you married? The question was so direct, so completely out of nowhere, that I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. I'm sorry. I said, are you married? No, I said carefully. I'm not. Do you have a significant other? No. She was quiet for a moment. People were walking past us in the lobby, heading to the elevators I'd just fixed, heading to their days, not paying any attention to the maintenance worker and the CEO having a bizarre conversation. I don't have a husband, she said finally, and I don't have anyone else. And I'm tired of pretending that's okay. So I'm going to ask you this, and I know it's completely inappropriate, and you can say no, and it won't affect your job or the building contract or anything else. But I'm going to ask anyway. I waited. Can I have a date with you? I said yes. I don't know why. It was insane. It was impractical. It was a terrible idea on every conceivable level. I was a single dad making $4,000 to $5,000 a year. She was a CEO of a company I'd read about in the local business section. We had nothing in common. She probably ate food I couldn't pronounce. She definitely went to gyms that cost more per month than I spent on groceries. But she'd asked me directly, without games or pretense. She'd been honest about what she wanted. And something about that, something about a powerful woman walking up to a maintenance worker and asking if he'd go on a date with her, made me believe she meant it. When? I asked. Tomorrow night, she said. There's a restaurant on Fifth Avenue. Nothing fancy. 8 o'clock. I'll need to arrange childcare, I said. You have children? She didn't sound shocked, just interested. 2, 7 and 5. Okay, she said, like this was perfectly normal information. 8 o'clock. There's a reservation under my name. She gave me the restaurant name and walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor. I stood there for probably longer than I should have, trying to process what had just happened. I didn't cancel. That was my first real decision. I could have sent a text saying I'd thought about it, and it was a bad idea. I could have backed out. I should have backed out. Instead, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who sometimes watches the kids when I have evening work meetings. She was delighted. She'd been telling me for years that I needed to get out more, that I needed to live my life, that my children needed to see their father happy. There's a woman, she asked excitedly, after I'd explained that I had a date. Sort of, I said. It's complicated. Is she nice? I barely know her. But is she nice? Yeah, I said. She seems like it. The next evening, I showered for an uncomfortably long time, trying to feel less like myself and more like someone who could sit across a table from a CEO. I put on khakis and a button-down shirt that wasn't stained with anything. I'd had my hair cut 2 weeks prior, so that at least looked decent. I made sure my shoes weren't scuffed, though they definitely were. Emma hugged me goodbye. Where are you going? She asked. Out to dinner, I said. With a friend. With a woman who invited me. She tilted her head, studying me. Is she your girlfriend? No, I said. It's just a date. Just meeting someone. Daddy, she said seriously, you should go on dates. You're sad sometimes. We notice. I kissed the top of her head and tried not to think about the fact that my 7-year-old could see through me that clearly. The restaurant was upscale, the kind of place where they knew Victoria by name, and seated us at a good table without her even saying anything. The kind of place where my khakis definitely didn't belong. Victoria looked different outside of work. She was wearing a dark dress that was simple but obviously expensive. Her hair was down. She looked softer, more human, less like a CEO and more like a woman. I'm glad you came, she said, after we'd sat down and ordered drinks. I'm not sure why I did, I said honestly. This is completely weird. It is, she agreed, but I've been waiting for you to acknowledge it, and you just did, so I feel less insane. I laughed. Despite my nerves, I laughed. Can I tell you something? She asked. Please. I saw you before the elevator broke. You were fixing something in the lobby about 2 weeks ago, and you were concentrating so hard. You had this expression like you were solving the world's most important problem, and it was just a door handle. And I thought, that man cares. That man actually cares about doing things right. And I didn't stop thinking about it. You asked me out because I was fixing a door handle. I said, I asked you out because you seemed real, she said. Everything in my world is performance. My business, my social life, my dating history, it's all been performance. And you're not that. You're just real. I didn't know what to say to that. Tell me about your kids, she said. So I did. I told her about Emma and her marine biology obsession, about Lucas and his Spider-Man phase, about the challenges and the joys and the way my entire life is organized around making sure they're okay. I told her about the exhaustion, about the guilt, about the feeling that I'm constantly falling short. And she listened. She asked follow-up questions. She didn't look bored or resentful or like she was wondering why she'd invited a single dad to dinner. "They're lucky," she said, "having a father who cares that much." "Where's your family?" I asked. She was quiet. "My mother is alive," she said. "We don't talk much. My father passed away 12 years ago. He was very ambitious. He wanted me to be ambitious. So I became ambitious. And I built a company, and I made a lot of money, and I achieved everything I set out to achieve. But I did it alone. And somewhere along the way, I became someone who doesn't know how to not be alone." "You could learn," I said. "Could I?" She looked at me across the table. "Or am I just going to wake up in 5 years and realize that I've gotten attached to someone who has a completely different life than mine, and it won't work, and I'll hurt both of us?" "Maybe," I said, "but that's the risk you take when you care about someone." "Is that what we're doing? Caring about each other?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'd like to find out." We saw each other once a week. That was what we agreed on. Friday nights. I'd arrange childcare, and we'd go out. We went to restaurants and museums, and once, memorably, to a terrible movie that we spent the entire time making fun of. But something shifted about 3 weeks in. Victoria came to the building one afternoon, unexpected. She found me in the basement, checking the vac system. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said, surprised. "Everything okay?" "No," she said. "Everything is not okay. I'm in love with you, and I don't know what to do about it." I set down my tools slowly. "Victoria!" "I know it's fast," she continued. "I know it's impractical. I know you have a completely different life and different responsibilities, and I'm probably not equipped to be part of that. But I am in love with you, and I needed to tell you. And if you don't feel the same way, that's okay." But I couldn't keep pretending this was just a casual thing. I walked over and kissed her, right there in the basement, with my tools scattered around and the furnace humming in the background. "I'm in love with you too," I said, "but I'm terrified." "Of what?" "That I'm not enough. That my life is too complicated. That you'll realize you could do better." "I could," she said, "but I don't want to. I want you." 6 months later, I brought her home to meet the kids. Emma was suspicious at first. She grilled Victoria about her intentions like a tiny prosecutor. But Lucas immediately decided she was acceptable because she brought him Spider-Man merchandise. Victoria sat on the floor and played with Lego. She didn't pretend. She actually built things. She laughed. She was present. When she was leaving, Emma hugged her. "Daddy was right," Emma said. "You are nice." Victoria looked at me over Emma's shoulder, and I could see her eyes getting wet. A year later, we moved in together. We rearranged our lives to fit. Victoria hired a company car so she could leave work earlier. I negotiated my schedule so I could pick the kids up from school. We made compromises. We made it work. And on a random Tuesday evening, with both kids in bed, sitting on the couch with Victoria's head on my chest, she said something that made me think about that first conversation in the elevator lobby. "I had everything," she said. "Success, money, achievement. And I was completely empty. And then I met you, and you had nothing by conventional standards. But you had everything that actually mattered." "What did I have?" I asked. "Presents," she said. "You showed up. For your kids. For your life. For me. That's everything." I learned something from Victoria that I didn't expect. That sometimes the people who seem to have it all are drowning in a different kind of poverty. That success can be empty. That love doesn't care about bank accounts or job titles or whether you're wearing designer clothes. What it cares about is presence, attention, the willingness to show up for someone, even when it's inconvenient or scary or doesn't make practical sense. Victoria asked me on a date in an elevator lobby because she saw something real in me, something worth taking a risk for. And I said yes because despite all the reasons it shouldn't work, despite all the practical objections, I recognized something real in her too. A woman who'd been alone in the middle of everything. A man who was alive in the middle of nothing. And together, we found what both of us have been looking for all along. Not completion, not rescue, just someone willing to stand beside you and be real. And sometimes, that's everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more heartfelt tales, and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. Thanks for being part of the Unscripted Hearts community.